Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This might be a little bit longer video than I normally do for you, they create for you. However, I hope you will find it an interesting one, and it will be a combination of several topics that I kind of will put into a story for you, in a way connecting the dots, as we tend to do on my channel. Before I end this video, I will give you my personal prediction and opinion about what I think is going to unfold in the following months. That will be my opinion, so if you're interested in it, stay all the way to the end. But I'm going to start with an interview that took place between Tucker Carlson and T.Cruz. T.Cruz is a senator from state of Texas, I believe, who demands regime change in Iran. Some of you probably have seen this interview. If you haven't, I highly recommend you to watch. I watched it yesterday, holding the breath almost, because it was one of the best interviews, in my opinion, that Tucker ever had. Then we will go to, where shall we go to? Maybe we will go a little bit to Netanyahu. And we're gonna go to President Putin talking about Israel's underground facilities and Russia's interests, Israel's interests and Russia's approach to it. He will make some comments on that from yesterday, from St. Petersburg meeting. So this is very, very fresh. We will also go to readiness from Kremlin as far as the next step between Trump-Putin meeting, as I understand. That would be quite logical, officially, of course. And of course, I have to take you to Obama, connected to Israel. Sorry, connected to Iran. Mistake, connected to Iran. And I would like to take you to Kash Patel and a statement that he made about the stolen election that some of you are aware of, some of you are not. I was actually in the United States in 2020 when that took place. And I will end this video with Obama, and then I give you my commentary. So this is what to expect. Stay all the way to the end if you want to hear my thoughts. Longer video, I hope everyone is okay with this. So let's start with Tucker Carlson. I will play for you first a short clip from this interview. And then I will take you to a longer one in which he is describing, T.Cruz is describing how he contributes to weakening Russia, all right? And that Russia is definitely the enemy of the United States. Let's start with the short clip first, and then I take you to the longer one.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of it, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my. You pull out the phone and use the
It's in Genesis. So you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it and you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two,
well, hold on.
I'm not holding on.
Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But what, hold on, define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions about.
So that's what Genesis, that's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel, yes.
And so is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel?
He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yeah, nations exist, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation
They're the
God's
descendants of
referring
Abraham.
to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
All right, so I want to just read you a comment from this clip. Let me go back to it. Someone says, the God excuse, the last refuge of a man with no answer and no argument. George Carlin, someone was quoting. Very, very cool, huh? So this is T.Cruz. Those of you who don't know what rhino means, I didn't know it either. I had to learn it myself. Well, I didn't have to learn it, but I did learn this when I lived in the United States. It means Republican in name only, rhino. So he's one of those. And now you're going to hear longer part of this interview. That's what I would like you to take a listen to, in which he is describing Russia, Ukraine, what he thinks about Putin, and how he thinks Tucker was doing some kind of promotion campaign for Russia when he was visiting Russia. So this will be a little longer video. Let's take a listen. I'm telling you, such a good interview. You will enjoy it. If you haven't watched it, make sure you do. So let me go to the video and I will mute myself now.
Is this? I am the product of the last 25 years watching carefully, being involved in the periphery, and I see an unending string of foreign policy disasters that have impoverished and hurt our country.
Unending string.
An unending string. They would include Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, and our inability to stop the Houthis, by the way, in Yemen, which exposes us as weak, and I grieve over that. So these are failures. You helped preside over some of them as a member of the Senate.
What failures, foreign policy failures, have I presided over?
Well, we were unable to beat Russia in the war that you supported against Russia. You've been spending the last 3 years telling us that Vladimir Putin is evil and we're going to beat him with other people's children, and 1 million of those kids are now dead. You've never apologized for that. That was a full failure.
By the way, look, the level of number of falsehoods you lay out just in one statement are rather.
You haven't supported the war against Russia?
Are rather stunning. So the war against Russia was caused, which I have explained at great detail, by Joe Biden's weakness.
But you supported the war.
If you want to talk, we can talk Russia and Ukraine. I'm happy to talk about it.
Do you think that's been a success?
No, it's been an absolute disaster.
Okay, but you supported it. Shouldn't you apologize?
No, you should apologize. I'm not going to engage in the demanding of apologize. So I'm
like, that's my point. Is all these failures and no one ever says I'm sorry.
Matter, or do you just throw out if you want to talk, we can talk.
Okay, I do. I want to know why that seems like a true disaster for the United States. You have supported it.
Do you believe Joe Biden's weakness caused the war in Ukraine?
I think Joe Biden's aggression caused it.
His aggression? What aggression?
He demanded that Ukraine join NATO. How does that help the United States?
It is a terrible idea, and I have vigorously opposed Ukraine joining NATO.
Okay, so that's what caused the war.
No, it's not.
Okay. All right.
Do you want to know what caused the war? Look, you do the dismissive. You're not actually interested in facts. You're like, okay.
Okay, tell me. It seems super obvious. You're absolutely right. And I'm sorry. That is a tick of mine that is wrong. And I mean this with sincerity. I'm sorry to do that to you. I just think it seems so obvious that sending Kamala Harris to the NATO Security Conference to say you're going to join NATO is what triggered the invasion days later.
Okay. So can this will take a few minutes to lay out because it's complicated, but I think the facts matter.
I used to pay Midjourney monthly. Now I use this AI for a one-time cost and unlimited designs for.
I think two things caused the war in Ukraine. Number one, I think Biden's incredible weakness and the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. Now, I believe we need to leave Afghanistan, but not with the incompetence that led to 13 servicemen and women being murdered by terrorists there. The way Biden did that was disastrous, and I think our enemies looked to the commander in chief and said, this president is weak. And when when that withdrawal was so disastrous, I said publicly at the time, the chances of Putin invading Ukraine have just risen tenfold.
Right.
But secondly, and this is critically
Well, I
important.
agree. That was awful, the withdrawal.
And it was a major cause of our enemies all said, hey, this president is weak. And so it invited, and by the way, look, I despise war. And I think weakness and isolationism produces war because it invites aggression from our bad guys. It's why I agree with Ronald Reagan's peace through strength. The best way you avoid war is being strong enough that your enemies don't want to mess with you. But let's get back to Ukraine and Russia. Look, Putin didn't wake up 2 years ago and decided he wanted to invade Ukraine. He's wanted to invade Ukraine for decades. Putin has referred to the collapse of the Soviet Union as, quote, the greatest geopolitical disaster of the 20th century. And Putin has long been explicit. His desire is to reassemble the old Soviet Union and, in fact, reassemble the Russian Empire that was even bigger than that. If you want to reassemble the Soviet Union, the natural place to start is Ukraine.
Do you really believe that Putin has territorial designs
Yes.
on Eastern Europe?
Yes.
What countries?
He has said that you can go and read his speech. Hold on. I don't want to lose the narrative of what happened, so we can go back and do that, but I don't want to lose telling the story first. So let me explain this, and then if you want to go back, we can take all sorts of digressions, but just give me a couple of minutes to lay out the facts of what happened. He has wanted to invade Ukraine a long time, and he's done it before. In 2014, he invaded Ukraine, invaded Crimea. When Barack Obama was president, he invaded the southern portion. He did not invade the rest of the country. Why? And the reason is the principal source of revenue for Russia is oil and gas, and the natural gas pipelines run right through the country of Ukraine, and he didn't want to jeopardize his ability to get gas to Europe.
Right.
So in 2015, Putin started a project called Nord Stream 2.
Did anything happen in 2014?
In terms of what?
Wasn't there a coup in Ukraine run by the Obama administration?
Let me finish telling. I told you we'll take lots of digressions in a second. Let me finish telling the narrative. 2015, Putin began building Nord Stream 2. Nord Stream 2 is an undersea pipeline that runs from Russia to Germany. The entire purpose of Nord Stream 2 is when it was completed and turned on, it would let Russia circumvent Ukraine and get its gas straight to Europe. In 2019, Nord Stream 2 was almost complete. And the conventional wisdom in Washington was, this is terrible, but there's nothing we can do about it. I didn't believe that. So I drafted sanctions legislation that was targeted to stop the pipeline. My legislation passed the Senate with overwhelming bipartisan support. It passed the House, and Donald Trump signed it into law.
Can I just ask, why wouldn't you want Germany to have cheap energy?
Because it empowers Russia. And I believe in making our enemies weaker and our friends stronger.
Has blowing up Nord Stream made Germany stronger?
Not being dependent on Russia has made Germany stronger.
So you think Germany is stronger now than it was 4 years ago?
I think not being dependent on Russia. Germany has all sorts of problems, and many of them are domestic to their own politics. Hold on, let me finish. I'm trying to.
No, but what you're saying, it doesn't. Germany seems so much weaker now that its energy costs have spiked and the manufacturing sector is collapsing because of that.
Let me finish. I'm focused on America's interest. I don't want Russia stronger because I believe Russia is our enemy. You and I disagree on that. We can talk about that. But I want our enemies weaker. I don't want to go to war with Russia, but I want our enemies weaker. I don't want Europe dependent on Russia. I don't want Putin rich with oil and gas revenues and able to invest in his military and pose a threat to America. So the sanctions legislation that I authored, it passed. Putin stopped building Nord Stream 2 literally the day that President Trump signed my sanctions legislation into law. He signed it, if I remember right, at 7 p.m. on a Thursday. Putin stopped construction at 6:45 p.m. So the sanctions legislation worked, and it killed the pipeline. The pipeline lay dormant for over a year, just a hunk of metal at the bottom of the ocean. Joe Biden came into office. He was sworn in on January 20th, 2021. Putin resumed deep-sea construction of Nord Stream 2 4 days later, January 24th. He did so because Biden had foreshadowed weakness on this issue. That foreshadowing was accurate. because several months later, Biden formally waived the sanctions on Nord Stream 2 and let Putin complete the pipeline. In January of 2022, I forced a vote on the Senate floor to reimpose sanctions on Nord Stream 2. The week of the vote, President Zelensky in Ukraine publicly called on the Senate, please pass this sanctions legislation. It is the last best hope of stopping Russia from invading Ukraine. At the same time, the government of Poland put out a formal statement from the foreign ministry to the Senate, calling on the Senate to pass my sanctions legislation, and said, if you do not, Putin will invade Ukraine. The day of the vote, Joe Biden came to Capitol Hill. It's the first time in his presidency he had done that. He went to the Democrat senators' lunch, and he personally lobbied them on this issue, not any other issue. This was his number one issue that he came to lobby them on. They came out of that lunch. Every Democrat had voted with me twice against Nord Stream 2. 44 Democrats flipped their vote. They voted in favor of Russia, in favor of Putin, and 4 weeks later, Russia invaded Ukraine. That was the direct cause of the war. And if Trump had been president, there would be no war in Ukraine.
So may I ask, I, of course, disagree with your analysis completely, but I want to be respectful.
Okay.
And
so tell me what you disagree with.
It's such a long conversation. I've spent the last couple of years on this, and I just respectfully disagree with your analysis, but I don't doubt your sincerity that you believe that Putin is our enemy, that Western Europe should not be allowed to use Russian energy. I mean, you seem to really believe these things. My question is about results, because I think it's relevant to what we're seeing now in Iran. You look back after having you personally voted to send billions and billions and billions of U.S. tax dollars to Zelensky to support his civil service and the war against Russia and all this stuff. Can you say that what you did worked?
So I can say what I did personally, sanctioning Nord Stream 2 worked and prevented a war. And if Trump had still been there, if the sanction had been in effect, there would be no war. I'm in favor of avoiding wars.
But once the war broke out, you voted to fund it to the tune of billions and billions and billions.
And to be clear,
and did that work?
Okay, to be clear, what I voted for the initial tranche of funding, and then I voted against the subsequent one. So it hasn't worked. So I've been in between. I haven't been on the full Ukraine, full-throated hawk side or the anti from day one. I voted for the initial tranche of funding because I wanted Russia to lose. I think the Biden administration administered it in a horrible way. I think they wasted a ton of money. And I think what they did was actually incoherent because they were funding both sides of the war. I was very vocal and among other things, flooding $100 million to Iran, which was used, among other things, to help the nuclear program, but also to make drones that Russia used to fight.
So here's my concern. I'm not going to defend the Biden administration. Really did a lot to wreck the United States.
Yeah, the most damaging administration
at the end,
in history.
Where we sit now, Russia is stronger. It's closely allied long-term with China.
I don't know that Russia's stronger. I don't think that's right.
Okay. I think it's pretty obvious that it is. But it's certainly not destroyed. And it's allied long-term with China.
Maybe. That there's no doubt Biden's foreign policy drove Russia into the arms of China, and that's concerning.
Okay.
They also have a long history of animosity.
Western Europe is weaker and more in debt. The United States is weaker and much more in debt. Hold on. So you and I are agreeing on a lot. We're agreeing. Here's my question. Have you questioned any of your previous assumptions? Did you play any role in this at all? Are you responsible at all?
Of course, and like you said...
What have you learned?
Like you said you've changed your mind.
Yeah,
I voted for the first funding of the Ukraine war, and I voted against every subsequent funding stream because it wasn't working. And I looked at what was happening and said, this is not working. And had the money been spent in an intelligent way and not wasted, and had it been successful, I might have been willing to fund more. But it wasn't successful, so I voted no. And the war is going to end. Look, President Trump campaigned on ending the war. I think he's frustrated because Putin has been less than eager to reach a deal to end the war, but it's going to end. You're not going to see another dollar coming from Congress.
Do you think Zelensky wants to end the war?
I think Zelensky has behaved horribly. I think his Oval Office meeting will go down in history as the worst Oval Office meeting of any leader that has ever come to the Oval Office. I think he behaved like a pompous ass. And I think he is unrealistic. I think Zelensky spends his time with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in the New York Times, and he believed he was going to the Oval Office as a resist figure. And I think he's doing real damage to his country right now.
You described him many times as a hero.
I don't recall ever using the word hero. I will say Look, I'm not a Zelensky cheerleader, and I'm not in the business of saying everyone we support has to be a saint and everyone we oppose has to be a villain. I'm not in the morality game. I'm in the U.S. interest game. Why did I want Nord Stream 2 stopped? Because it would strengthen Russia, and Russia's our enemies. It's entirely U.S. interest.
Did you support the industrial sabotage against it, blowing it up?
So I think you believe America did that. Is that right?
Of course.
Okay, I think the chances of that are zero.
You think Russia did it?
No, I think Ukraine did it. Okay, so I don't know. So I don't know who did it. In terms of the theories that had been put out there, the idea that Russia blew up their own pipeline never made any sense to me at all. That just, I can't even articulate why they would do that. The idea that Biden did that, look, I could see it being in U.S. interest to do that, to blow up Nord Stream 2. I just think Biden was too weak. I don't believe Joe Biden.
But are you in, I guess you in,
so that leads
the Norwegians, the Ukrainians, NATO, whatever.
Look, that leads me to, you know, who benefits? And it leads me to think either the Ukrainians blew it up or Ukraine's allies. I don't think Biden did, because Biden was so weak, I don't think he would give the order. I find that implausible.
But you're in favor of it.
Look, I was in favor of stopping it. I think blowing it up was a good thing. So I'm supportive of that, but I don't think America did that. I don't think Biden gave that order.
But in
I
general,
could see Trump giving that order, but he wasn't in office.
Yeah. And you think that the largest act of industrial sabotage in history helped our allies in Western Europe or other fellow NATO members?
Look, I got to say, I don't understand. For some reason, you are really invested in defending Russia, and I don't get that. I'm not attacking you with that. I'm genuinely, I don't get why you're so passionate about defending Russia.
Actually, I was defending Western Europe, the home of my ancestors, and that, tripling their energy costs and destroying their industrial base. You just accused me of being an anti-Semite, an isolationist, and a Russia lackey. I've not called you a neocon once, which you are, but I haven't said that.
That's absurd. Yeah, those neocons that oppose the Iraq war,
right.
But that's
okay.
Dishonest.
But I haven't called you that because name calling.
You just said which you are. You just called that.
Okay.
Called me that. You just did.
I guess what I'm saying is you're triggered because I use name calling. I get it. I was triggered when you called me names, and I'm triggered once again that you're calling me a Russia defender when in fact I'm defending Western Europe. And I don't think that you.
Do you think Putin's our enemy?
Well, he's literally our enemy. You are funding a war against him.
But do you think he is our? No, you're saying we're his enemy. Do you think Putin is our enemy?
I think it is a tragedy that your policies, specifically yours, helped drive Putin into the arms of China, forming a bloc that's larger than us.
So you won't answer that question.
I don't. He is literally our enemy right now. That is a tragedy for the United States.
No, you're saying. But you won't say he is our enemy. And look, I
don't know in what sense. I don't want to be enemies with Russia. It doesn't help us at all. It may help some people in the United States, but in general,
let me be clear.
I don't want to be.
I don't want to be at war with Russia. I don't think it is in our interest to be at war with Russia.
With China. That is a disaster.
But listen, no doubt, and I want Russia and China attention. So I agree with you there. But I think Putin is a KGB thug. I think he is a bad man. Now, I don't want to go to war with him over that. Okay. But I'm not naive. And I watched your episode.
He's a bad man. Okay.
Look, I watched your episode where you went to the Russian grocery store, and I'm
was that disloyal, do you think?
It was just weird. It was like a promo video for Russia, and I don't understand. I'm not attacking you when I ask why, because I'm genuinely I don't get.
Like when you called me an anti-Semite, you weren't attacking me, you were just noticing.
No,
but may I ask you a question? So here, let me just answer yours by saying the United States, the Biden administration, with your help, full support, began this war on Russia in response to their invasion of Ukraine. And one of the things they kicked Russia out of SWIFT, out of the international financial system. Yeah. And my first response was, this is going to really hurt the US dollar, which it has. And I hope someday we can have a conversation about that. It's really, really hurt the one thing that we needed, which was to retain dollar supremacy. So I was interested in the economic condition.
By the way, that's a reasonable point and a serious conversation.
I'm aware. And I was,
but I can agree with you.
no, but I was accused of being, I think it's weird that you went to a Russian grocery store and said it was prosperous. No, my point is.
It looked like a commercial. It looked like a commercial. Isn't this wonderful?
No, it was an argument against the efficacy of sanctions. Sanctions against Russia, which you casually and enthusiastically imposed, scoring a little moral victory every time, had no material effect that helped the United States. Russia is backstopped by China, and I recommend that you go there and see it. It is way nicer than Washington, D.C. Way nicer. To me, that's a tragedy. I was horrified and angry at my leaders, including you. It's like, I want to live in a country that's nice, with low food costs and no homeless people.
All right,
I don't understand why that's too much to ask.
So do
Instead, I get wars with Iran. No, I just want lower food costs. How's that?
So, look, it's a weird argument that you do often, which is, listen, things are crappy in America. Liberals have done bad things to America, so we shouldn't worry about any enemies around the world.
Republican senators, they don't care about us. They're focused on other countries.
You wrote that,
and our country is dying, and you don't care because you're focused on Iran or Putin.
So you believe that I don't care about America. I guess you believe Donald Trump doesn't either. Like nobody cares.
I believe that your focus is way too on other countries. It's way too focused outward. The money that you send abroad could be used here and should be.
What money that I send abroad, by the way, I emphatically agree with
Ukraine. You don't even know.
I emphatically agree with Donald Trump's, for example, dramatically slashing USAID. I think the only reason we should be deploying that is to benefit U.S. interest, national security interest, and keep Americans safe. And so,
how much did you vote to send to Ukraine?
Look, you're in about $80 billion.
$80 billion.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. I know I played a really, really long part of this interview, but you know, the reason why I did it, there are many reasons. Because there was so much in that exchange that I want to address. Actually, some of the comments I give you now, because we have to go through these chapters now. There is a saying to protect the country from the enemy, foreign or domestic. He, you know who I mean, the one who Tucker just interviewed, to me, this is a domestic enemy. Some people might don't agree, but that's how it looks like to me. It's absolutely mind-blowing that people like himself are in the power positions. He's there like 12 or 13 years as a senator. I think there should be a term for people how long they can serve, because after a certain amount of time, well, some maybe right away, even to get into the position, they become corrupted. And the longer they stay, the more corrupted they are, the more stuff to blackmail them is captured, is gathered. You know, that Tucker was promoting Russia, showing the grocery store. Now I'm thinking about my videos that I have created when I was going to Russia so many times. Those of you who are new on my channel, new subscribers, just scroll down to year 2022, actually, to December. This is when I went to Russia for the first time, because I really wanted to see with my own eyes how the country is, how it looks like. And I know Moscow is just like the best representation of the country, but still is, okay? There is such a place. It represents something, even if it's not the entire country. But it represents the people, the spirit, the culture. And I was there the first year of the special military operation, and I kept going there for the following years, throughout which time the sanctions had been implemented, more and more and more sanctions. And Russia survived, and Russia is fine, and Russia didn't collapse. And you know, when Tucker said to him, maybe you should go to Russia and see how it's there, this is very, very, it was almost disgusting to listen to someone like that senator is, because there are many like him. And maybe I give you one of the main comments that I wanted to tell you before the end of the video, and I will have more at the end. But in my opinion, this whole disagreement between President Trump and Tucker Carlson, in a way, it's orchestrated. That's how I feel, that's how I believe. It's my perception, it's my intuition telling me this, because what's taking place right now is something that's going to expose even more who is on which side, who is paid by who, and who is really the warmonger. And don't take everything as a face value. So you have to really give it time and don't react emotionally to everything that you see, including Trump's statements or posts. It's a game. This is a very, very high stake game. Now, let me take you to another video that I prepared for you. Some of you probably seen it. This is Netanyahu, because now we're going to jump to, since Israel was mentioned, we're going to jump to Netanyahu and his statement that go way, way back as far as Iran's threat to the world.
Capable of producing alone, without importing anything, nuclear bombs within 3 to 5 years.
The deadline for attaining this goal is getting extremely close. Iran and Libya are racing to develop nuclear weapons.
Iran is gearing up to produce 25 bombs, atomic bombs a year, 250 bombs in a decade.
By next spring, at most, by next summer, at current enrichment rates, they will have finished.
Iran is so dangerous. Weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
Iran to produce an arsenal of nuclear weapons. They have the wherewithal, the stored up, preserved knowledge to make a bomb very quickly if they wanted to do it.
Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be within a few months.
Iran will be capable.
Okay, so like 20 years now or something, 1995. But I don't know if you noticed, if you play this again, from 2015 to 2018, those two clips, he looks quite different. I think you know where I'm heading with this. Like, he changed a little. All right, so now let me take you to President Putin, who T.Cruz called a criminal attack and whatever else he said. He will be asked a question about Iran and Israel. So this is from yesterday, from a meeting in St. Petersburg. Let me play this video, and he will be addressing Iran's underground facilities and what is Israel's interest as well. So let's take a listen to Putin now.
To ask a question, please, about Iran. Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel has said that Israel's attack on Iran may lead to regime change, and Donald Trump, the President of the United States, has called for Iran's unconditional surrender. I wonder if you agree with the Prime Minister and the President.
I didn't quite get your question. What do I agree with? What do you want me to agree all that? They said one thing and the other thing. And then you said, do you agree? What do I agree with?
With either of their statements, that it could lead to regime change and that Iran should prepare for unconditional surrender.
Want to get rid of this visceral fat? Check this out.
This is how to get in shape fast.
As you know, Russia and I personally keep in touch with Prime Minister of Israel on this matter, as well as with President Trump. you should always see whether the goal is achieved or not when you start something. We see that as of today, given all the challenging domestic processes there, we know about that, and there's no point in delving into that, but still there's a consolidation of society around the political leadership of the country. And, well, it happens virtually everywhere all the time. Iran is no exception here. That's first thing. And the second thing, which is equally important, and everybody talks about that, I would just reiterate that, what we hear and see all around the place. These underground facilities, they exist and nothing happened to that. And hence, I believe it would be right for us all together to seek ways to end hostilities and to find ways to reach an agreement for all parties to the conflict so that the interests of Iran could be ensured on the one hand when it comes to its peaceful nuclear activities, naturally, peaceful nuclear activities. And I'm also talking about peaceful nuclear energy and the peaceful use of nuclear energy in other areas, as well as ensuring the interests of Israel in terms of unconditional security of the Jewish state. That is a subtle matter, and certainly we should be extremely careful here. But in my view, overall, such a decision could be reached. As you know, back in the time we started implementing a project in Iran that was launched by German companies, and we built the Bushehr power plant. German companies left. Iranians asked us to follow up on that project. It was a difficult task because it was started by German specialists. It was their design, and Rosatom made a great deal of effort in order to adjust these to the Russian design. Nevertheless, we succeeded, and this unit has been operating successfully. We signed a contract to build 2 extra units, and this is a work in progress. Our experts are on the field. We're talking about over 200 people. And we agreed with the Israeli leadership that their security will be ensured. Overall, I believe that given the plans of Iran to keep on developing the peaceful nuclear program, I'm talking about the areas of agriculture that is applicable, as well as medicine and so on. But this is not nuclear energy, as well as nuclear energy, together with Iran, since we have this high level of trust between our countries, we have established very good relations, we could keep up with this effort and ensure their interests in this area. I would not delve into details, there are a lot of them. And all these details were discussed by us, both with the Israeli side, with the American side, and certain messages were sent to our Iranian friends. And overall, the interests of Iran in peaceful nuclear energy can be ensured. At the same time, we could lift concerns of Israel when it comes to its security. In my view, there are such options. Once again, we have outlined them to our partners, the US, Israel, and we reached out to Iran. We do not impose anything to anyone. We simply say how we see the way out of the situation. But certainly it's up to the political leadership of all these countries to decide, primarily Iran and Israel. Thank you.
Okay, now we're gonna stay within Russia for a moment, and I'm gonna read you an article from TASS. This is the statement from Dmitry Peskov, who is the spokesman for Kremlin. From today, June 19th, readiness to move forward essential for Russia-US. Dmitry Peskov pointed out that conversation between the two presidents, meaning Putin and Trump, are the top of an iceberg. So it's a quick read. Let's read it. St. Petersburg, June 19th, the restored channels of dialogue between Russia and the United States are already functioning, and it is now crucial for Moscow and Washington to stay ready to move forward step by step, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said. Quoting him, conversations between the two presidents are the top of an iceberg, and as a follow-up, there is a communication between the US Department of State and the Russian Foreign Ministry, as well as between presidential aides, special envoys, and other agencies. He said this in an interview with RBC. Big work is currently being carried out, and the channels of dialogue which have been restored are working already. It is possible to achieve the desired result at once. No, it is not. Staying ready for a step-by-step process is essential, he said. So, you know what I think about it. I think that Putin and Trump, they have a lot of talks that no one will be hearing about officially, but officially, the good thing for the public is that they are having the conversations and there is a dialogue between Russia and US. And you know my thoughts on this. Like I always said, Putin and Trump are fighting the same evil. If you don't agree with this, that's okay. I will keep on saying what I believe in. Now, let me take you to another clip. This will be about Obama. And then I will connect a few dots here and give you my opinion before we end this video. So this is about Obama and Iran. If you are not aware of it, let me find it. It's right here. Let's play this interesting clip. Let me see if I muted myself, guys. I have to mute myself first. One moment.
He sent $1.7 billion in cash to Iran. The money was delivered in actual cash, stacked on pallets and flown into the country. It happened in January 2016 when Obama authorized the transfer of the money to the nation known for sponsoring terrorism. The funds were allegedly part of a long-standing financial obligation stemming from a pre-1979 agreement. Prior to the Iranian Revolution, the United States had committed to supplying Iran with military equipment. However, following the revolution, the transaction was abandoned, leaving Iran to claim reimbursement for the $400 million initially paid. With the accrued interest, this amount spiked to $1.7 billion. The Obama administration decided to resolve the debt. On January 17th of 2016, an aircraft arrived in Iran carrying $400 million in cash loaded onto pallets. The remaining balance of the $1.7 billion was delivered in subsequent shipments. Now, as Israel continues its attacks on Iranian nuclear and military sites, President Donald Trump is deciding how involved the United States will become in this war. Many pointing straight back to Obama as the reason Iran had the funding to continue paying for terror and start building up their nuclear programs. Obama left office. He sent $1.7 billion in cash.
Before I close this video, I would like to read a few comments because this is what I really want to address. For example, Obama needs to be held accountable. Treason. I remember this and nobody did anything. So let me close this now and tell you what I really think. Well, maybe before I do, let me take you to Kash Patel, the director of FBI, and his post from X from a few days ago, I think 2 days ago. that somehow not many people are talking about, or, you know. The FBI has located documents which detail alarming allegations related to the 2020 US election, including allegations of interference by the CCP. I have immediately declassified the material and turned the documents over to the chairman Grassley for further review. So why is all of this important? Because, in my humble opinion, what we're gonna witness, and I will take you to one more clip with Obama. We're gonna witness kind of an earthquake as far as questioning all the elections in many, many countries. Allegedly, 72 countries had their elections stolen for a number of years. The same group was behind it. The same people were doing that. And of course, United States is one of those countries, and there are many other countries. When people think that they were voting for a certain candidate and they were certain that the other one didn't have any support, but somehow that person won. There was interference, and that interference is going to be one of the things that will be related to Biden's and Obama's, or Obama's presidency. One of the things, there are many reasons for treason, but this is one of those as well. So now let me show you what Obama just said yesterday. Let's see, I have this right here for you guys. Thank you so much, by the way, for watching. It's much longer video, but I hope you're still with me. Full conversation. Yeah. So here is, okay, so he is at some forum in the Connecticut, wherever it is. And I would like you to listen to what he is saying here, as if he is addressing that whoever was in position of being able to steal those elections is no longer there. So you have to reverse what he's saying, because, you know, they always do it. It's projection. He's literally talking about, in my opinion, not being able to influence those elections anymore. One of the things that he was talking about. And then I give you my final commentary after that. I know it's hard to look at him because he is definitely not a good guy. But let's take a listen, because this is how they are exposing themselves to.
But I believe it continues to be that there has to be responses and pushback from civil society, from various institutions and individuals outside of government, but there also has to be people in government, in both parties, who say, well, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. And when what we're seeing right now is when you do not have those constraints and guardrails, right? When you don't have people inside of government who say, no, this is how the law works and we should follow it. Democracy is not self-executing. It requires people, judges, and people in the Justice Department, and people throughout the government who take an oath to uphold the Constitution. It requires them to take that oath seriously. And when that isn't happening, we start drifting into something that is not consistent with American democracy. It is consistent with autocracies, It's consistent with Hungary under Orban. It's consistent with places that hold elections but do not otherwise observe what we think of as a fair system in which everybody's voice matters and people have a seat at the table and there are checks and balances and nobody's above the law. And we're not there yet completely, but I think that we are dangerously close to normalizing behavior like that. And we need people both outside government and inside of government saying, let's not go over that over that cliff because it's.
So I don't know if you heard what I heard, but this looks to me like not so much power anymore. In my opinion, they definitely lost. They are just pretending that they didn't. And what I think is going to happen, guys, you might agree, you might don't agree. I think we're going to see a lot of military tribunals. We're going to see it. And we're actually going to see the exposure, full exposure of many of those people, what they have been involved into, what kind of crimes they have committed. And looking at him, at his posture, at his energy, reading that, this is not someone who is expecting a too bright future at all. Actually, on the contrary. It's almost as if he wants to hide somewhere. So that will be what's coming. You know, before the end of this year, and I think it might start around September, but I think around November, we're going to see a lot of very disturbing evidence that will be coming out into the open, that some people are aware of and some people are not. And we're going to witness this. So I will go back to this video and see if I was on track as far as my predictions. That's all I have for you today, everyone. Thank you so much for watching my videos. I really appreciate you guys. I want to huge thank you to Mary, who donated yesterday on my PayPal, for your very generous donation. I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. So thankful. It keeps me going. To everyone who hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel and watches my video in full length, I am very grateful. To those of you who would like to support me on Patreon and can do it, thank you so much. Locals community or becoming a member of my channel, that helps me as well. And if you would like to follow me on Instagram, go to Anya K. Let me show you where you go. There we go, right here. Go to Anya K _44 and you can follow me there. I don't put out any political stories in my pictures. This is mainly like personal, kind of travel, beautiful places, photographs. But if you click here on my profile, you will see a lot of the clips that I recommend for you, as well as I always post a video in the stories when a new YouTube video is already available. So the links will be down below in the description box. Very lengthy video today, guys, almost 1 hour, but I hope you're okay with that. Thank you so much for watching. Lots of love. And remember, we are the leading edge and we are saving humanity. And I am very interested in reading your comments after today's video. Bye, everyone.